My name is Amelia Houghton. I'm 25 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought my family actually loved me. You always do this, Kayla said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. You always have to make everything about you. I stood in my mom's kitchen in Charleston, holding a birthday cake I'd driven 40 minutes to bring over, and I watched my older sister's face twist into something I'd seen 100 times before. Jealousy. Pure, ugly jealousy. Kayla was 28, 3 years older than me, and she'd spent every single one of those years finding a way to make my wins feel like her losses. "It's my birthday, Kayla," I said quietly. "I didn't make it about anything." "Right, because you never do." That was Kayla, smiling in front of Mom and Dad, sniping the second we were alone. Mom walked in before I could answer, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Girls, please, not today." "Not today" was Mom's answer to everything, every single time Kayla started something. Never, "Kayla, that's enough." Always, "Not today," like I was the one causing problems just by existing in the same room as my sister. I want you to understand something about my family before I tell you what happened next, because none of it makes sense unless you understand the order of things. Kayla was always first. First to walk, first to talk, first to get married, until that fell apart 2 years ago and she moved back into Mom and Dad's guest room. And when Kayla lost things, somebody had to pay for it. That somebody was always me. I had a boyfriend. His name was Mason. We'd been together 14 months, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I had something steady, something that was mine. Kayla hated that. I watched her eyes land on the ring box sitting on the counter, the one Mason had left out by accident when he dropped off my birthday gift early, and something shifted in her face. It was quick, a flicker, but I saw it, and looking back now, that's the moment I should have known. "Is that from Mason?" she asked, too casually. "Yeah, for my birthday." She picked it up before I could stop her, turned it over in her hands like she was pricing it. "Nice," she said. "He's got good taste." Dad came in behind Mom, took one look at the two of us standing there and sighed like we were still 12 and 15 fighting over the last slice of pizza. "Can we please just cut the cake?" Nobody in that house ever asked what was actually wrong. They just wanted the noise to stop. We ate cake, we sang. Kayla laughed loud enough that anyone watching would have thought we were close, and when I left that night, she hugged me at the door and said, "Love you, Millie," using the nickname she only pulled out when she wanted witnesses. I didn't think anything of it. That was my first mistake. 3 days later, Mason canceled our dinner plans, said he was tired, said work was rough. I believed him because why wouldn't I? He'd never given me a reason not to. What I didn't know was that my sister had gotten his number off that ring box delivery slip sitting on the counter. What I didn't know was that she'd already texted him twice that week. I was about to find out exactly how far Kayla was willing to go, and exactly how little my family would do about it once she did. 3 days after my birthday, Mason canceled our dinner plans. Said he was tired, said work was rough. I believed him at first. He'd never given me a reason not to. By the second week, I knew something was wrong. "You've been weird," I told him, sitting across from him at the little Italian place off King Street we used to go to every Friday without fail. "You've canceled twice. You don't answer your phone before 10 anymore." "Work's been insane, Amelia," he said, not looking up from his plate. "I told you that." I'd known Mason long enough to know when he was lying. He always looked up when he was telling the truth. Steady, direct, like he wanted you to see it in his face. That night, he kept his eyes on his pasta the whole time. "Is there someone else?" I asked. He laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. "Where is this coming from?" I didn't have an answer that didn't sound insane. "My sister's name flashed on your lock screen when you set your phone down to grab the check." I hadn't said anything yet because some small, stupid part of me still wanted to believe it was nothing, a coincidence. Kayla asking him something harmless about my birthday gift. But a few days later, I called my mom's house looking for my spare house key, and Kayla answered instead of Mom. "She's at the store. What do you need?" "Just tell her I'll swing by later." A pause. Then, too lightly, "Hey, is everything all right with you and Mason? You seem off lately." That stopped me cold. I hadn't told Kayla anything was wrong. I hadn't told anyone. "Why would you ask that?" "No reason, just noticed you two haven't posted anything together in a while." I hung up feeling like the floor had shifted an inch under me, and I couldn't explain why. That Saturday, I drove to Mason's apartment complex on Folly Road unannounced, something I never did, because I wanted to ask him again, straight, no room to slide around it. I parked 2 spots down from his car, and I was about to get out when I saw her. Kayla, walking out of his building, sunglasses on, hair still damp, laughing at something on her phone like she didn't have a single care sitting on her chest. I sat there and watched my own sister walk to her car in my boyfriend's apartment complex on a Saturday morning, and every piece of the last 2 weeks clicked into place at once. The texts, the canceled dinners, the question about whether things were all right between me and Mason. She wasn't asking because she was worried about me. She was asking because she already knew the answer. I didn't confront her right there. Some part of me was still hoping there was an explanation that didn't destroy everything I thought I understood about my family. I drove home instead, hands shaking on the wheel, and called Mason. "Hey," he answered, too fast, too bright. "What's up?" "I just saw Kayla leaving your apartment." Silence. Real silence. The kind that answers a question all by itself. "Amelia, it's not what you think." Don't. Don't do the thing where you tell me what I think. "Can we talk about this in person?" "We're talking about it right now." He didn't answer for a long moment. Then he said the words that changed how I looked at my entire family. "I didn't mean for it to happen, but I think I have feelings for her." I sat in my car outside my own apartment, phone pressed to my ear, and I laughed. One short, ugly laugh, because it was either that or scream. "Feelings for my sister," I repeated. "Amelia." I hung up. What I didn't know yet, sitting there in that parking lot, was that Mason wasn't the one I should have been most afraid of. He was just the first domino. Because when I called my mom 20 minutes later, sobbing, expecting her to finally take my side, she didn't say a single word against Kayla. I called my mom 20 minutes after I hung up on Mason, still sitting in my car, voice shaking so hard I could barely get the words out. "Mason and Kayla," I said. "Mom, Kayla's been seeing Mason." I expected silence. I expected shock. What I got was a long, tired sigh, the kind you give a child who's interrupted dinner with a complaint about their sibling for the 100th time. "Amelia, honey, are you sure you're not misreading this?" Misreading it? He told me himself. He said he has feelings for her. Okay, well, relationships are complicated. Maybe you two just weren't right for each other and things happen the way they happen. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, waiting for her to say Kayla's name the way I needed her to say it. "That's not okay. That's your sister. I'll talk to her." Instead, I got, "I don't want this to turn into a whole thing between you girls." "A whole thing?" I repeated. "Mom, she went after my boyfriend." "I'm sure it's not as simple as that." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back, and I drove to my parents' house instead of calling again, because some part of me still believed that if I stood in front of my mom, if she saw my face, she'd finally hear me. Dad was in the driveway when I pulled in, hosing off the porch steps like it was any other Tuesday evening. "Dad," I said, walking up before I even cut the engine sound out of my voice, "did Mom tell you what happened?" He turned the hose off. "She mentioned you two were having some kind of falling out." "A falling out? Kayla's been seeing Mason behind my back." Dad rubbed the back of his neck, the same way he always did right before he said something that let Kayla off the hook. "Amelia, you know how your sister's been since the divorce. She's had a rough couple years. I don't think she meant to hurt you." "She's been in his apartment, Dad, on weekends for weeks." "I'm not saying what she did was right. I'm just saying maybe give her a little grace here. She's your sister." Grace. That was the word my family used every single time Kayla did something that would have gotten anyone else cut off completely. Grace for Kayla missing my college graduation because she wasn't feeling it. Grace for Kayla borrowing $4,000 from Mom and Dad and never paying a cent back. Grace, grace, grace. And never once, not one single time, grace extended toward me. I went inside anyway because I wanted to hear it from Kayla's own mouth. She was in the kitchen, calm, arms crossed, like she'd been rehearsing this moment since the parking lot on Folly Road. "You went through my messages or something," she said before I'd even opened my mouth. "This is exactly why I don't tell you things. You blow everything up." "I saw you walking out of his apartment, Kayla." "So what, I'm not allowed to have friends now?" "He told me he has feelings for you." For the first time, something in her face slipped, just a flash, gone as fast as it came, and then she rebuilt it into something cold and steady. "Maybe you should ask yourself why your boyfriend went looking somewhere else in the first place." Mom walked in right as Kayla said it, and instead of gasping, instead of telling Kayla that was a horrible thing to say to her own sister, Mom just said, "Girls, please, not today. Not today. Never today. There would never be a today where my mother chose me over the peace of not upsetting Kayla." I left that house and I didn't cry until I was 3 blocks away, parked outside a gas station on Savannah Highway, engine running, hands shaking on the wheel the exact same way they had the day before. That's when my phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. "We need to talk. It's about the house. Eliza." I sat there staring at it because Eliza was my aunt's oldest daughter, my cousin, and she never texted me out of nowhere. And underneath the confusion, one thought landed hard and cold in my chest. Whatever this was, it was about to get so much bigger than Mason and Kayla. I called Eliza back before I'd even pulled out of the gas station parking lot on Savannah Highway. She was my cousin, my aunt's oldest daughter, and we weren't close. Not really, not since we were kids spending summers together at our grandmother's place out on John's Island. So a text like that, out of nowhere, sat wrong in my stomach before she even picked up. "Eliza? What's going on? What house?" "Grandma Houghton's house," she said. "On John's Island. You know she passed in March. The will's getting read next week, Thursday. I just wanted you to hear it from me before your mom made it sound smaller than it is." "Why would she make it sound small?" "Because your mom's been trying to keep everybody calm since the funeral. I don't think it's anything bad, Amelia. I just think you should be there in person. Some things are easier to hear secondhand than to actually sit through." I sat there in my car, gas station lights buzzing overhead, not sure what to do with that. Grandma had always been fair, almost stubbornly so, the kind of fair where she'd count out candy by the piece so nobody got more than anyone else. I didn't think there was a trick waiting for me at that reading. I just knew Thursday meant sitting in a room with Kayla again, and I wasn't ready for that yet. I drove home instead of dwelling on it, and that night my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, this is Emma, Mason's sister. I don't know if you remember me. We met at his birthday last year. Can we talk? It's important. I stared at that message for a long time before I answered. Emma and I had gotten along fine the one time we'd met, quiet, a little awkward, clearly not as close to Mason as I'd expected a sibling to be. I couldn't imagine what she'd need from me now, 3 weeks after everything with Mason and Kayla had blown up. Sure, I typed back. What's going on? Not over text. Can I call you? She called 2 minutes later, and the first thing she said was, I've been going back and forth on whether to say anything, and I decided I can't just watch this happen and stay quiet. Watch what happen? Mason and your sister. It's been going on longer than he's told you, and I have a bad feeling it's going to keep going, and everyone's just going to let it, the same way your family's been letting it. I don't think that's right. I sat down on the edge of my bed, phone pressed to my ear. Emma, why are you telling me this? Because I like you, she said simply, and because my brother's been a coward about it, and somebody in this whole mess should actually tell you the truth instead of managing it. She didn't tell me everything that night, just that she had more than what I already knew, more than the parking lot, more than his one admission on the phone. Real proof, she said, enough that nobody could talk their way around it anymore. Send it to me, I said. Yes, I will. Just give me a couple days. I want to make sure I get all of it first. I hung up not knowing whether to feel grateful or sick, and for the rest of that week I went through the motions of my life, work, groceries, avoiding my parents' calls, with this feeling sitting under everything, like waiting for a second shoe to drop that I couldn't yet see the shape of. Thursday came fast. The will reading was set for 10 in the morning at Lewis Whitfield's office on Meeting Street, and the night before my dad called, not my mom, which was strange on its own, because Dad almost never called first. Just be there tomorrow, please. Whatever else is going on with you and your sister, just be there. I'll be there, Dad. And, Amelia, try to keep an open mind. Kayla's not doing well. This year's been hard on her. I almost laughed. Even now, even with everything, the ask was still for me to make room for Kayla's feelings. I didn't tell him about Emma. I didn't tell anyone. I just went to bed that night with my phone on the nightstand waiting, because somewhere out there Emma was putting together whatever it was she needed me to see, and some part of me already knew that whatever arrived before Thursday morning was going to change how that reading went for everyone in the room. Thursday morning, I sat in a leather chair in Lewis Whitfield's office on Meeting Street, my hands folded in my lap so tight my knuckles had gone white, and I watched my sister walk in 15 minutes late like she owned the room. Kayla sat down across from me without a word. Mom and Dad sat between us, the same way they'd sat between us our whole lives, not as a wall protecting either one of us, just a body in the middle, pretending distance was the same thing as peace. Lewis Whitfield went through the will first, and it was almost anticlimactic. The house on John's Island split evenly between me and Kayla, the way Grandma had always said she wanted things done. No fraud, no trick, just an old woman trying to be fair to 2 granddaughters who weren't fair to each other. Kayla actually smiled when she heard it, looked at me like, see, nothing to make a scene about. That's when I opened my bag and pulled out the folder I'd brought with me. Before we finish, I want Mom and Dad to see something. Dad said, Amelia, this isn't the place. It's exactly the place. I set the folder down and slid out the printed screenshots, every text between Kayla and Mason going back 6 weeks, the ones his own sister had sent me 2 days earlier, because, in her words, she couldn't watch this happen to me and say nothing. Time-stamped, dated, starting the week of my birthday, right after Kayla picked up that ring box off the kitchen counter. Mom's hand went to her mouth. This isn't some misunderstanding, I said, looking at Kayla, not raising my voice, not needing to. This is 6 weeks of you planning this, starting the same week you saw an engagement ring meant for me. Where did you even get that? Kayla started. Does it matter? I said. You did this, in writing, in your own words. Dad picked up one of the pages and I watched his face change as he read it, really read it, not just heard about it secondhand the way he had every other time. Mom read over his shoulder, and for the first time in 5 weeks, I watched her face do something other than smooth things over. Kayla, Mom said, voice shaking, you told me nothing happened until after they'd already broken things off. Mom, it's not. Don't, Mom said, just one word, the first time in my entire life I'd heard my mother cut Kayla off instead of me. Kayla's composure cracked wide open. You have no idea what it's like, she said, turning on me instead, voice rising. Watching you get everything, the boyfriend, grandma's attention, all of it. You always had it easier, Amelia. You always... I didn't have it easier, I said. I just didn't spend my whole life trying to take what was mine, instead of building something of my own. Nobody said anything for a long moment. Lewis Whitfield quietly closed his folder, giving the room space that wasn't his to fill. I stood up. I didn't yell. I'd spent 5 weeks waiting for my family to finally choose me, and sitting in that office, I understood something I should have understood years earlier. I didn't need them to choose me. I needed to stop waiting for people who'd already made their choice a long time ago. I'll take my half of the house, but Kayla, stay away from me. Stay away from my life. I'm done being the one who has to make things easy for everyone else in this family. Amelia, Mom started. No, I said, and for once my voice didn't shake. You spent 5 weeks telling me not today. Well, today's the day. I'm done. I walked out of that office into the Charleston sun, and for the first time since my birthday, my hands weren't shaking at all. 3 months later, I moved into my half of Grandma's house on John's Island. Kayla never once set foot in it, whether out of guilt or shame, I never asked. Mason texted me twice, trying to explain things I no longer needed explained. I didn't answer either time. Kayla called once, crying, asking if we could move past this. I let it ring until it stopped. My mom and dad still call sometimes, still say they miss me, still ask when I'll come around again. Maybe someday I will, but it'll be on my terms, in a house that's half mine, built on the one thing my family never gave me. Proof that the truth mattered more than keeping the peace.